Okay. Hare Krishna, Kanu Priya.
Dandava pranam.
Dhanavas. Good
Hey,
morning.
good morning.
Yeah, I've woken you up.
Yeah.
But thank you. So, the reason I called you today on the channel was that, as you remember, we were discussing about sharing certain topics in devotion process, and some very, very important elements of the devotion process. And we thought you're more qualified than I am, so I thought I'll
I
call
don't
you.
know about that, Prabhu. I really don't think so.
Yeah, but
We're all
welcome to my
students.
channel. Yeah,
Thank you.
welcome to my channel, and I hope that people will really benefit from this discussion today. But before we start, so just if you want to give a quick, brief background of your so-called journey, spiritual journey.
Wow.
And so let me tell my viewers that you are actually from England, right? So you
Yes.
live in, yes, okay.
Yep.
Live in London, right?
In London.
Yes, okay, great. And so how did all this journey start for you?
Well, it started when I was quite young, actually, and I was always inquiring. I always believed in God, even though my parents weren't religious at all. I went to a Christian school. Maybe that had something, I don't know, but I remember it being I was very young, like 4 or 5, and I believed in God. But I was always very inquisitive, and I wanted to know why we're here.
Right.
What it's all about. And then by some good fortune, I met a devotee when I was about 15. I got one small part-time job doing some painting, artwork. And he was a devotee, and he would tell me many things, and it all made sense, total sense to me. But I think, it's a long journey. Looking over the years, it's been a long journey of, I think you hear things and it takes a while to digest those things and to realize some of those things, and it's still an ongoing journey. We're always slowly changing our lives and becoming slightly more aligned, I guess. It takes a while. It's different for everyone. Some people, they just jump straight into it and it's great and they're there, and some people it takes a time and they're in and out of this sort of duality, as it were.
So this person you met, was he like an ISKCON devotee then?
No, he was from our Sampradaya. He was from
Chaitanya
Saraswati. Yeah.
I mean, let me tell my viewers that you're actually artist by profession, am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, great. So you met this person and obviously you got curious or something attracted you. So what actually attracted you? Or was it just, at first, it was just curiosity?
Well, it was curiosity, but it was the fact that all my questions, were answered. And more so, and even more so, and the fact that it felt very complete. It was, it seems like there's a process for everyone. When you start to read into the Vedas, there's a process for every person in every type of position. And it's also very beautiful, and it's sort of, I think now, only my sort of later years, a lot further down the line, that I'm really starting to really appreciate it a bit more, I think. So yeah, it's just very complete. It feels very complete.
I mean, did you have like a religious household or?
No. I mean, you could say it was quite sattvic the way we grew up. We lived in the countryside, very peaceful, fresh. But no, not really. My father doesn't believe in God. He's an atheist. My mum, not particularly. I went to a Christian primary school. That was nice. I used to like singing the songs. Very lovely, some nice songs.
I mean, I'll come to that in a second, but I mean, what did you read any books at the time where you thought, wow, this is good? I mean, this is making sense.
I bought the Gita. So I bought the Bhagavad Gita and I read that. And I read a lot of the small Prabhupada books, like they're all like, the Nectar Instruction and Easy Journey to Other Planets. And, it's kind of a bit mind-blowing when you're coming from a totally different culture, different way of living, different understanding of things, to sort of read some of these books. I mean, in one way, well, I'd kind of also before that been quite interested in the supernatural. I did believe in that there was other things that we couldn't see, and again, not really quite understanding all that. But so, reading these small books also gives another kind of insight, and it was like another sort of step into another whole way of thinking, which was quite very interesting. Very, very interesting. It's like revolutionary in a way to everything, you think,
Do you remember those questions? And when you actually got the answer, you said, aha, like, that aha moment. Oh, this makes sense.
Yes, yeah. Like, who am I? Why are we here? The connection between Krishna and the Jiva soul, and that we're small parts and parcels of him. So this is why we might have those inclinations. It's like, we think about, or even in the mundane world where we have like children, our children might have our DNA. So on a bodily existence, they might have certain characteristics that are similar to us because they've come from us in that way. But they're different, obviously, because their soul is individual. But in that way, so it's kind of understanding that, yes, okay, I can understand that, Krishna is the creator. So we naturally want to create things. But because we're separate from that, we think it's us. We don't realize it's coming from him. And so we, sort of seeing and understanding why we do things, like almost a bit of the psychology behind it, with, understanding Prakriti and the different natures, and how that affects us and who we are, and how we can then try and not control it, but manage ourselves, a way of managing ourselves to progress.
I mean, what always sort of fascinates me is that I always want to know, like, you were obviously so you're born in England, and obviously very different culture to India. I mean, how much did you actually know about Hinduism? Like, I mean, did you know a lot? I mean, at that time, are we talking like, obviously when you're growing up, and even like in your younger days, I don't think it was, we had so many temples here, and it was that. I mean,
No, we
Hare
don't have
Krishna
any. I mean, yeah, nothing. I didn't know what the Hare Krishnas were. I didn't know who they were. I never knew anything about Krishna. Not really. I think maybe I'd heard of Hindus, but I didn't really know, and just thought they had lots of different gods. But that concept felt a bit strange, and it was just felt a bit foreign to my understanding. But when I was explained, that there's a God, and I never forget, how he explained it to me, that there was Krishna, and how you have how he explained the demigods as being like his managers. He explained it like a company. If you have a big company, you have the boss who's created everything, and then you have his PA, and then his managers, and then you have some workers on this level, and then it sort of goes down and down and down.
Can you hear me? I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
It's back.
Yeah, it's back now. Yeah.
Sorry, had
No, that's okay. Yeah. So we were talking about the hierarchy. Yes.
Yeah, the hierarchy of everything, and who what the position of the demigods are, and how actually, when and then we read in the Gita where Krishna's talking about this, that while the demigods are of a higher position in one way, they that everything is going through them to him, so just go directly to him. It made just so much sense of why they're there, and who we are, and all the different levels, and and also to understand that to get to Krishna, we can't directly go to Krishna. Some people think, oh, I can just worship Krishna. He's saying, no, if you've got a big boss and a big company, and you've just entered the company, you're not going to be able to have access to the big boss. You're going to have to go through an agent, or through his manager, or through someone that's a representative of him, so that they can, monitor you and get you closer to the boss, and that's the idea of guru. You know, in the Gita we read that in I think it's nicely. I think it's chapter 434, where he's talking about, you know, to inquire, you know, since you have to come through an agent, through Guru, you'd surrender and inquire through him. So in this way, it made so much sense that yes, you can't expect to go straight there. You know, you need to come through an agent. You need to approach devotees.
Sometimes it's a very hard, for me personally, I thought this was a very hard concept to grasp, I think, for, you know, sometimes, because then, but later on it makes sense that because he's the living embodiment to me, because Guru Master is, you know, his life, his every single thought is about Krishna. So he becomes actually a living, the Krishna starts living in him,
Yes.
in his
Yes.
thought, in his actions, in his voice, you know, everything.
Yeah.
So in that way, you know, is really an embodiment of Krishna himself, you know, the divine.
Yeah.
And
No, absolutely. I think really understanding the power of the Guru Parampara also, to know that they're empowering each Acharya and that they're living through that, through them, and that we have their mercy. And that's a really, you know, to really think about that and really meditate on that, it's a really
and I mean,
humbling thing.
so just on the sort of your journey so far, like, did you like explore Islam or Christianity or Judaism or Buddhism as well, or?
I think with Christianity, I mean, coming from a Christian school, I liked it, but I felt there was more. It felt that didn't feel complete, didn't feel there was enough. I felt there was more, and I remember looking into Islam a little bit and thinking, oh, it felt a lot more structured in a way. It felt a lot more. There was felt a bit more of dedication, but then I'd read also some of the real books of the Christian saints, like Saint Francis of Assisi, and some of them were just so dedicated and so surrendered, actually, that it was very inspiring. But then to try and find that in a sort of here and now, I was searching for that kind of. I don't know how to quite verbalize it.
So basically, didn't satisfy your, you know.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, because I knew people that were Christian and went to church, and I'd been to church and I'd been to a few things, but didn't feel. I don't know. I didn't feel that connection. I felt there was. I appreciated it and I loved it, but I felt there was a lot more. It's very hard to explain.
The thing is, like, given, because I have some idea, you know, when I talk to people, you know, Indians who came here, I have some ideas, the struggles in 60s, 70s, 80s, you know, Indians and Asians, when they came here, they had to go through, you know, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I mean, so that the you know, the environment, you know, in terms of the society looked at this, you know, these people from India subcontinent and the philosophy, etc. So my question, like, next was like, how did your parents, when you said, you know, I'm chanting the Sanskrit mantras, meditation, not eating meat, and I'm following this philosophy from this country, India. I mean, how did they react to it? I mean, what was their reaction?
Oh, I mean, they're sweet. I think they just thought I was going through some phase, you know. Oh, she's going through some phase. And then it wasn't when, you know, the phase wasn't ending. And I remember when I had my children and they were, you know, oh, you know, their kids are going to, you know, being on a vegetarian diet, they're going to be sick, they're going to be ill. What are you doing? You know, had many problems. Yeah, many things. I didn't even see my family for a while when their kids were younger. But then as they got older and they could see that they were healthy and very healthy, actually, they never really got sick. My kids never really got sick. You know, we never got sick. We never got really that ill. And when they could see that they were healthy, young, intelligent children and good people,
now,
they changed. Yeah.
I mean, now you know that the number of vegetarians in UK is just, you know, increasing every single year. They're going up and up.
Yeah.
Vegans and vegetarians, you know, it's
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the reason I just mentioned the environment was because obviously, you know, people look at anything foreign in a very, you know, different light, isn't it? They have internal biases or whatever it is. It's nobody's fault or anything. Just, you know, what you're brought up with. So that's the reason I asked, because, you know, some of their daughter, you know, following completely different, you know, philosophy. Yeah, it's a bit, probably it's a shock for them, isn't it?
I think it was a shock, you know, but I think, you know, because I've stuck with it, and I think they've seen that it's okay. Oh, 1 minute. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
The postman. Yeah, I think they've even liked it. I mean, my I don't know how I can turn this off. Okay, sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that even, you know, it's interesting how you think, you know, they're never going to change, or you're facing so much opposition, but actually over the years they've become really accustomed to it. They like it even, you know. My mum, they love the food, prasadam. My mum even loves to look at the deities. My dad has loved listening to the bhajans. You know, it's really interesting how you just have to stick with things sometimes. And people, you know, why they might, I think mostly with parents and people that are attached to you, I think they might fear that you'll, you know, when they don't know something, they fear that maybe you're getting into some, you know, weird cult or something. They don't. It's just not an understanding. You know, it's lack of understanding of something. But when they can see and the results of it and how lovely it is and how positive it can be, then people change. And it's also giving people the opportunity to change and not being resentful to maybe how they treated you, but seeing that they can actually also change themselves. You know, and this is, I think, the power of that influence, that, you know, if you can be humble and tolerant and continue with your practice, and then giving other people, it's amazing how other people it can affect. Like just one person, even your actions, just by doing what you're doing, can have such an influence and positive effect on other people.
Yes, I was going to say that it's not so much what you believe in, it's actually how, you know, you're living your life. And when somebody sees that, you know, the positive impact or the way they are conducting themselves, that has a huge impact. Yeah, okay, something's working for them. At the end of the day, I think we all want our children to be happy and, you know, to be positive, you know, to be good human beings, to be good citizens, isn't it? Really? Yeah. So so that was, I mean, as I said, thank God it's all gone well, because I know sometimes they can go in the other direction as well, which is good. And now, like, you know, I always have curious about this, that when, you know, when you go on this journey, at what stage you feel like this is it, or that point never comes. I mean, like you know, like you start learning or understanding a philosophy, then you start practicing it, and then you see, wow, and you say, this is it. Was there this is it moment as well, sort of for...
I think that happens, along the journey, when you're, you know, at the beginning, where you're learning things, and then sometimes you might get some doubts in your mind, or, you know, also I guess this is where you have to be careful with association. Sometimes you hear things where people misinterpret or misunderstand things, or, you know, just generally maybe you have some doubts, especially when we're in that beginning stages where we're still seeing the environment as good or bad, and we're still thinking, oh, this can't be good because I'm just facing so many problems, you know, since I'm trying to practice, or, you know, so many things against me. But then the things that I've thought about when I've had those moments is when I look at the Vaishnavas, I look at the Guru Parampara, and I think these are such highly intelligent beings. Like they're highly intelligent, and they're so surrendered and committed, and there's no other way. And also then going back to reading scripture, or you know, again, asking questions when you have those doubts. Go to a Vaishnav, go to a devotee, ask, inquire. And then when you hear that, you know, when you can, and then really then try and understand again how things are and what everything's about, and then it just starts to again make more sense, and then you sort of get put back on track. But, you know, that's Maya's job. She's there to distract us and really test us to see if this is really what we want. And over the years, I've really felt that, no, this is it. There's nothing else. There's nothing else that's been more complete for me.
I mean, I also feel like you're absolutely right. I think for me personally, I think when you see, your guru, your spiritual master, and you see his life and the way he, it's something about him also, was very
Mm-hmm.
attractive. You know, that yeah, it's working. This works. And also the other thing is, I think you see the transformation within yourself. You see your thoughts change. Your
Mm-hmm.
the way you look at life also change. I mean,
Yeah.
you suddenly, you go through pain and pleasure, of course you do, and it's part of parcel of life. But I suppose sometimes when you look at life, that's also changes. You see your environment, the way you see your environment, your everything starts changing in a positive way.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know yeah, I
And our
mean,
gurus would say, I mean, Srila Maharaj would always say, that the environment is perfect. It's how we engage ourselves within that environment. We can't change what's coming to us, but we can change how we think and feel about something. So we then realize that it's an inner journey, also, really much an inner journey. It's about adjusting ourselves. And that's really hard, actually, because to really look at ourselves, it's so easy to look on the outside and cast judgments and make opinions about other people and other things, but to actually look at how we're engaging in things, how much time we're putting or in one thing or another, or what we're listening to, where are we, what we're doing, what are our actions, all these things, to really self-analyze ourselves is quite a hard
and
thing to
how
do.
certain things, yeah, I mean, and how certain things, which were important to you before, just start falling away.
Yeah,
And it's not out of fear, or it's not out of disdain, or we reject it. It's nothing. No, it wasn't. It is not out of negativity. It is just that you feel that these were a bit childish things, at once. And
yeah.
now it's sort of, they're there, is fine, appreciate, but not for me anymore.
Yeah, it's that. Yeah, so this is Rushi. This is taste. We start to have different taste. Once you have a taste for Krishna and for devotional life, the taste for other things just disappear. Like the taste for material things suddenly just tastes so. It just feels so empty and feels so bland. And you think, how did I was so enchanted by that, and now you can't think of anything else. You can't even, so it's natural that maybe certain people you might just not be interested to associate with, like you said, not because of out of hate or anything, but just it just naturally happens. Things
It's a
just
positive
naturally change.
evolution.
It's positive, yeah, positive
It's not
evolution, yeah.
like, oh yeah, like out of fear, or
Yeah,
hatred. It's no negativity. It's a
no,
positive evolution. Positive
yeah,
vibe.
yeah, yeah, no,
I mean, for me,
absolutely.
just quickly, like I never knew Krishna was sweet. Like it's never. Yeah. And I think the sweetness was actually, I was listening to Sridhar Maharaj's interview on the YouTube, and he was talking about how sweet Krishna is. And we are in Kartik at the moment, Kartik month,
Yeah,
right? And he was explaining that even when Krishna steals his sweet, I mean, he was, and I first time in my whole, because I never saw him like that. I always saw him as a yogi, right? He's the yogis of the yogi, Yogeshwar. And I said, saying, yeah, but Sridhar Maharaj was saying, I said, and he just completely melted my heart, So I could feel that little sweetness coming in about Krishna.
yeah,
So
yeah,
wow, it's amazing.
yeah.
But yeah,
He's
so
mischievous. He's very mischievous. He's above the rules and regulations. He can do what he wants. And it's a
but
zigzag line. I've heard also it's described as like Krishna consciousness is a zigzag line. It's not, when you're going a straight, it's not a straight line. When you think you're going in this way, then suddenly it changes and goes another way. And just when you think, oh, I understand it, or I know something, then it changes again. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's always, and it's described in the Brahma Samhita that it's always revealing. Krishna's always revealing himself. It's always unfolding all the time, and it's a constant journey. And I think this is another big realization that I had for myself was when, because we're kind of conditioned to understand time as when I'm born and when I die, and so everything within that is very conditioned to think there's a beginning and an end. But when we realize actually there isn't, it's just we're eternal. And to just that, when I really thought about that, everything just changed. Everything, all the really I guess what's the word? Priorities change slightly. There is, time is eternal, and it's just, it's quite
It's
incredible.
also cyclical, isn't it? In our concept, it's cyclical because you have to sort of it keeps going on and on. There's no almost
Yeah,
eternal, but it's also cyclical at the same time.
yeah, yeah.
There's no beginning, there's no end, but there's a cycle, isn't it? When the cycle finishes, then it starts again, and then it starts.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. But no, absolutely. But it just opens up things, in terms of this idea of material and spiritual. I think you're able to sort of see things slightly differently. Again, it's that conscious evolution, when you start to really understand things, it really changes your whole vision and how you look at things.
And then obviously you got initiated. That must have been a very special moment. And Gurudev, your Guru, obviously Srila Govinda Maharaj,
Yes. Yeah.
fantastic. What can we say? Not enough time to say anything about. Too much. We need a lot of time. Not even that.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we cannot explain about him. He's and I, unfortunately, as I said, I always think I wish I was obviously alive at the time, but I never got an opportunity to meet them in person. But but again, they are there. They physically they might not be there, but they are obviously there, always there for us. So that was a very special. Did you say you actually took initiation like face to face, or was it through?
Yeah, in the Green Street Temple, early one morning. Yeah.
And how was that experience?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. Felt a bit mystical in the way. I think everyone's experience is totally different, but it was lovely. Yeah, it was Mangalati, and he was there, and he'd come on his tour because the temple was very small, and on the Sunday programs were very, very busy, and it was also a bit challenging for me to get there on the weekends. So I used to go sometimes in the week, early in the morning, and he was there. So I managed to. I didn't see him so many times. I had a young family. I didn't have much money, so I couldn't afford to go to India. So I only really saw him a few times when he came to the UK. But yeah, he was lovely. He's credible personality.
Diksha or the initiation, a lot of people have this misconception that Diksha is actually means so you're complete and no, actually Diksha means that's the first step. It's like you're going into the nursery. You are declaring,
just this. Yeah, I've heard Acharya Maharaj used to say a lot. It's just like you have the letter. When you're applying for university or applying for school, and you get the acceptance letter. Initiation is the acceptance letter into practicing Krishna consciousness, and this is when you get the beads. This is when the Harinam mantra is given to you, and you start chanting. And the importance, actually, again, the importance of Guru, and the importance that we can't think we can do this on our own. And then that's, so it's the beginning. It's the beginning stage.
Yes, the real struggle.
The real struggle begins. Yeah, and I think
you'll be tested. Again
many
and again.
times,
and again.
many times. Yeah.
I mean, now, and how many years is that now? How many years you've been initiated? A few years now? 20 years? Do you remember the year?
96, I think, 96. So what are we now? 20? It's like 11, maybe 14 years or something. I can't remember.
No, 14, 1996. So 25 years.
Oh, is that long?
Yeah.
My gosh.
I think 25 years, yeah. Because 20 to 21, that's your 21 years. And then 4 years, 96. So that's nearly 25 years.
Crikey. I'm still thinking it's like, 2011, 2020. My goodness. Time just disappears. That's scary.
Any regrets, any thoughts of making a U-turn?
No, I just feel totally grateful and can't believe that I had such good fortune, really.
Yeah. While I was talking to you, this thought just came to mind. Please don't the mind when I ask you this is,
Yeah.
like, you know, when you get the census form, you know, you have to tick the boxes of which
Yeah,
religion
yeah,
you are.
yeah.
Do you, I mean, I've seen like a lot of people say I'm spiritual but not religious. You know, they don't want to. A lot of people are very. They don't want to attach themselves to any religion. No, you know,
Yeah.
different. I mean, how do you when the tick box comes? Where do you tick the box now?
I normally, when it says other, I put Gaudiya Vaishnava, practicing, aspiring.
Yes. Okay.
Sometimes it doesn't give you, or sometimes I might just put Hindu. But
Yes.
just depends where you're going and what you're doing. But
I
yeah,
suppose it's
I
a
would put that.
generic umbrella, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. No, great. That was really, really good, actually. So here we are. Yeah, 25 years later, having conversation. Um, so my next, you know, you were discussing about we being the Kartik month and such an auspicious month, and we there are a lot of ideas and concepts within and steps within bhakti, devotion process.
Mm.
And I think the one of the most important uh, step is surrender. Because when you take a diksha or initiation, you're effectively surrendering, yourself to the process, to the guru, to the philosophy or whatever you want to call it. Now, in the West, generally, surrender means that it's not a very positive thing. It's a very negative thing. Or surrender means, oh, you were defeated, or somebody controls you. Somebody has power over you. Well, in a way, in spiritual sense, there is. Well, I don't know. You'll answer that. So let's talk about surrender or devotion, or we call it Sharanagati, right? The Sanskrit word
Mm-hmm.
translation is Sharanagati. So let's talk about surrender. I mean, what does it mean to you, and what do you think?
Well, it's such a big topic, and there's some really beautiful books, and I've learned a lot from my Shiksha gurus and devotees and God brothers and sisters, and the topic always that I think we need to be discussing, because like you said, it's a process, and we're aspiring practitioners, so we're trying to develop ourselves. So yes, the idea, I think surrender, faith, surrender is really important, if we want to really understand bhakti. And it's difficult when you're coming from, like you said, this world, this material world, especially in the West, where we think everyone's got to be a winner, everyone's got to be on top, and no, who wants to surrender, who wants to respect anybody, in terms of bow down to anybody. It's a big thing, I guess, in the West. But when you start to really understand it, it's actually really beautiful. Are you saying like Krishna is very, very sweet, and it's reciprocal? So I think, first of all, to understand Krishna and understand the position we have with Krishna. So Krishna is he's the dominator, and we're the predominated. So therefore, we can't but be his servants. We can't but be underneath him. He is, the originator of everything, and everything is about a relationship and engaging in some sort of relationship. So the process of bhakti is about trying to develop love for Krishna, and that love is about a relationship. Even if we look at mundane relationships or mundane love, it's about that exchange of loving actions towards each other, and all sorts of things. So to understand that this is really what Krishna wants from us. So therefore, to develop bhakti is to develop our practice. And how do we do that? So there's 6 limbs of surrender, which and there's actually also some beautiful songs. There's a lovely song also about written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur about Sharanagati. And there's
Yeah.
some beautiful books also. I'll show you. There's a couple here.
You can share. But before actually
Yeah.
you tell us about this, and I will share something with you in the sense of
Yeah.
surrender, because people think that surrender is not is easy. Actually, surrender is very difficult.
Yeah.
Because from my own personal experience, because ego will always will not let you surrender, and they will say, why are you, for example, when you just not surrender just the will, but even your thought process in a lot of respect.
Everything, yes, yeah.
Everything, yes.
Thinking,
And that,
feeling, and willing.
that is correct.
Everything.
And it is so, it's easy to surrender, but then again the ego will always. And the other bit I found was that surrender is not that necessarily Krishna is asking from us. I mean, this is my understanding. I think it's actually volunteered. We are doing it willingly,
Yeah,
out of
this
love
is,
or out of.
no, absolutely. The bit, again, with a relationship, there has to be free will. Without free will, there cannot be spontaneous. That cannot be that relationship. If you want someone to love you and then you just make them love you, it's a different experience. But if someone does it off their own free will, then there's a really beautiful exchange. So it's the same with Krishna. This is why we have free will, to make the choice to either engage in devotional relationship with the Lord or not. So yeah,
I mean,
and
it's not like
the
I'll
ego
punish
is
you.
big.
If you don't surrender to me, if you don't love me, I'll punish you. Krishna never
Yeah,
says.
like it's not like that. It's not like that. We have to do it off our own desire. We have to have a desire to want to read. When we read about the gopis and how they have that like highest love for the Lord, and all they're doing is, Swami Maharaj Prabhupada explains it in his literatures that it's like that of someone that's that young love, when they just, all they can do is think about them. It doesn't matter what they're doing in their day, or the housewife that's or the lady that's cleaning, she's cleaning, but she's thinking all the time. She can't get them out of their head. It's like this is how ultimately we're aiming for. This is our destination, that we are thinking, feeling and willing everything for the Lord and his satisfaction. And in that will be a beautiful exchange.
So yes. I mean, I was just sorry. I'm just going to say. So we're talking, but you were going to share some scriptures. What surrender, how they define surrender, even the masters, how they define surrender. So you want to share that with us, please?
Yeah, well, I thought we'd just go through the 6 limbs of surrender first, and then I've got a few from a couple of verses from a few books, because it is a very interesting topic, and like you're saying, it is very difficult to fully surrender. So the 6 limbs of surrender, we have the first one, which is Anukulyasya Sankalpa, doing what is favourable for unalloyed bhakti. So accepting that which is favourable for devotion. So we might think, well, what's that? So if we read also, the 9 processes of devotional service, when we understand what that is, hearing, chanting, remembering this, doing, serving the deities, serving devotees. There's many different practices that are favourable for us to develop our devotion. So, and a big part of that is sadhu sangha. So actually hearing, the first one really is to hear from a devotee
Shravanam.
about the Lord, because as we're told many times from our Shiksha gurus, bhakti comes from bhakti. So if you want something, you have to go to a teacher that has that knows that about that. So then we can inquire and we can listen, and then that's, again, it's a heart-to-heart transmission. It will be awakened in the heart, but we have to first make the first step and commit to going and listening. And again, that can be difficult. Sometimes we think, I don't have time. There's always something to do. So at some level, we have to make some commitment or some regularity, I think, even if it's like, once a week, or at the beginning, once a month, whatever you can do, whatever your capacity is, but try and commit to something regularly. And again, like you were saying earlier, and then to see or witness how you change, how you're suddenly, your consciousness is very slowly changing. So to accept all those things which are favourable, and that also, when we're making decisions for ourselves, we have to use our intelligence, our buddhi. We have to know, how do we make a right decision when our mind is, or our ego is trying to take us in another direction. If we know what's right for us, what's going to have a good result, then we can make the right decisions. So the first one is making the right decisions for ourselves, doing the right things, listening, hearing, chanting, and giving us that time to do that, allocating time to do that. The second one then is pratikulyasya varanam, rejecting everything unfavorable for unalloyed bhakti. So again, it's making the decisions that if something's not good for me. So it's a bit like, when you get to my age, you realize you can't have so much, cakes and things. So I have to make a decision for myself on a mundane thing, thinking, if I eat all these lovely things, I'm going to put on so much weight, or I feel sick, or I won't be well. So again, in this way, what actions am I doing? Where am I giving my time? What am I doing? Is this favorable for devotion? Is this going to help me develop my devotion or practice or not? Is it going to take me away from that? So they're the two main things, is to think, what am I doing in my daily life? What actions am I doing? Who am I associating with? What am I doing? And accepting and rejecting is the first, I think, two really big things. And for myself, that's really helped me to really kind of focus, because when you get to some points in your life, it could be just really almost irrelevant things, but they help you make the right decisions. Is this going to be good or not good for me? And sometimes also we've heard that the scriptures say, and our gurus say all the time, that sometimes we're always looking for that quick way out or that easy answer. And, something that's really good for us doesn't always taste nice. When we think about medicine, like is explained that, hearing about the Lord, chanting the Lord is our medicine. So when we take medicine, if we're sick, sometimes it doesn't taste very nice at first. Maybe it tastes bitter or sour or something, but actually it's going to have a positive effect on our body and we're going to be well. Whereas, all the sweet, sugary things, they might taste really great at the beginning, but the outcome's going to be, not so good.
Yes,
So,
I mean, just to actually add sorry to interrupt you, just to add on what you said, what you talked about surrender. So when we go to a doctor and doctor says, this is what you have to take, this is your ailment. So we're literally actually surrendering to his wisdom.
Surrendering to the doctor, yeah.
Yeah, and he says, take this. But if we say, oh, no, what do you know? And I'll do whatever I want. So if you're a diabetic, he says, stop the sugar. So no, what do you know? I'll keep carrying on taking the sugar. The result of that. So
yeah.
And this is what I mean, that you are not surrendering to when people say to the master, you're not surrendering to an ego. You are surrendering to wisdom. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, and also there's faith, when people say, but I don't have faith. Well, they have faith. They have faith in their doctor when they go and see their doctor, because they're just accepting, or they have faith in the scientists. Hear all the time where scientists are saying, oh, we shouldn't do this, or we shouldn't eat that, or you should take this. We're having faith that they know what they're talking about. Someone might say, oh, yeah, but they're scientists. They know things, we haven't actually seen them do their experiments. We haven't actually seen them do things, but we're just taking it on some sort of faith that they have done some experiments and they do know what they're talking about. So why should we not believe what our gurus are saying? And just because we haven't seen Krishna doesn't mean to say they haven't seen Krishna. They've seen Krishna, So this is another thing. We quite often we want, especially with the religion and God, we want to see, we want to know first before we commit to anything. But we're committing so easily to the material world when the doctors will just say, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, and they're saying yes.
I think with surrender, I think then when the later you're like, for example, if you remember that Srila Maharaj said to Srila Govinda Maharaj that you can become he wanted him to be disciple, but he said that you should be able to put your mind on one side.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
cannot be the mind.
that's hard.
So, and when I'm talking to you and I'm thinking about the scenario, it's like, because when the guru is already, as you said, has been there, experienced it, and he understands the mind, he knows that mind will confuse us, mind will, if you may, they will, yeah, I think confusion, maybe you can, that's probably the right word, will confuse us and take us into a different direction. So when a master says, when somebody says to you, let's say you come down in here, coming down to my place, and I say, just follow the GPS, don't follow your mind, right? And you'll actually, you've never been here before, right? You've never been here before.
Never been there.
And then
Yeah.
I think also I was listening to one of the Sikh gentlemen, and he gave a very good example that when gurus tell you, so, and I'm going to come to that next bit a little, what I'm going, the next part of surrender is when he says, when you, so if I say trust you, and your trust after some time is sort of tested, it's just in terms like, yeah, I can trust this person. You trust them more and more and more and more, but it takes time. They don't want to give you the end result right away. You have to go step by step. And the point I was trying to say to you was that slowly the Shraddha, the concept of Shraddha, the faith, starts coming in. It will not happen initially first, but there are very, very, rare individuals like Srila Govinda Maharaj who was completely like, the Guru said it and he just followed, like, right, I'm going to just do it, right? But for people like us, it takes time, isn't it? The Shraddha and the surrender, right?
Yeah, so it depends again on, because it depends on what, it's evolution of consciousness. So it depends on what people have come from, where people have come from, what their past has been. So like you're saying, so some people, they might just, be able to surrender. Some are coming from above, some are coming from the spiritual world, like Govinda Maharaj, and some of us are trying to, come up through this material evolution of consciousness. So I think it depends, like, so it's different for everybody. So everyone, and Guru understands this is why, just so if Guru gives one instruction to somebody, it might be totally different for somebody else, because he knows their past, their present, and their future. He knows
very good point.
what's important. So we can't just hear one thing. So I heard Guru Maharaj, or I heard Maharaj, or say this about that, and so therefore it's okay to do this. It might not be okay for you to do that. This is the importance of
very,
Guru.
very good point. Yeah, excellent point.
So, but Govinda Maharaj, when Srila Maharaj, he's the one condition when he arrived in the temple, and he said, the only thing you have to do is give me your mind, give up your mind. And Guru Maharaj was like, yes, I can do that. And later he said, if I newly knew, it was, even for him, it's a challenge. So yeah, to really, and this is what surrender really is to actually to do what your Guru Dev is asking you to do. If he's giving you instruction, then that's what you do. That's good for you. That's only going to be beneficial for you on a spiritual level. We have to think in spiritual terms, not in material terms. Spiritual, it's a different. We're on a different platform, a different concept, different destination.
And I think on that point, it's a very, very, very actually good point you made there, and also that's the beauty of having a realized master, because you can have that personal relationship with him, and he can actually guide you that way.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. Your path might not be the same as my path. Your instructions could be very different to my instructions, and I think that is the beauty. So it's not like one thing fits all. It's
necessarily, yeah.
Yes, and I think that's a very, very good point. Yeah, I had never thought about that actually, but that's a very good point.
Yeah, and so then the third limb of surrender, which is Rakshishati Vishvasho, having faith that only Bhagavan is one's protector. So again, this is a bit, if we understand that Guru is the representative of the Lord, he's the living and breathing representative of the Lord, then if we are totally surrendered to our Guru, then we know that we're protected, we're under the protection of the Lord, you know. And to actually fully believe that is a very difficult thing, because we're still so conditioned in the material world, thinking that I'm the doer and I do some action and then I'll get some result, and it's because of my actions and because of my thinking and feeling and willing to do this that I'm going to get that. But actually, if we fully understand that it's all coming from the Lord, and that he's our protector, and that also Guru is there and he's our protector, and Guru said that he will never leave us, he's always with us, even if physically he's not here. We have to have that faith that that's true and that's real. So
so just quickly, the first three, just if you can repeat the first three, sorry, just the
so the first three, you have what's favorable for unalloyed devotion, make the right choices for devotional practice, to increase our sadhana, increase our practice for devotion. And they're like, if we follow the 9 processes of bhakti, then we have rejecting everything that's unfavorable for unalloyed bhakti, trying to make those decisions. We know that's not what's not good for us. And then to have total faith that the Lord is our only protector, only him. He's protecting us. If we have that full faith, like a child has with its mother, you know, a child might go out on the street, they might go out and they feel totally safe and protected because they're with their parent. They know that when they come home, there's going to be food, you know, generally. I know not everybody, but generally, you know, they know that they're in total care when they have their mother. So in this way, we have to have total faith, no matter what is coming to us, that the Lord, like Prahlad Maharaj, you know, he had a really challenging father who was, you know, trying to kill him in so many ways because he wasn't doing what he wanted, you know, and his Prahlad was completely surrendered to the Lord. He tried to kill him, put him with snakes, throw him off a cliff, poison him, many things. But Prahlad just had total faith in the Lord and was protected all the way through. So again, there's Draupadi with the, you know, when she was being exploited, you know, in the courthouse, and her sari was coming off. First she was calling out to her husband, and then finally she just surrendered to the Lord and thought, I have no control here. There's nothing I can do. No one's coming to save me. Lord, I'm under your, you know, I'm under your protection. What if you want this to happen, then that's your will. If you don't want this to happen, that's also your will. I'm surrendered to you. And immediately he responded. And Krishna says this in the scriptures. We read this. You know, the Lord says, if you call for me, if a devotee calls for the Lord, he has to respond. He has to respond. So, you know. And then going on to the fourth one, Goptrive Varanam, accepting Bhagavan as one's only maintainer. So it's similar to the other one, a protector or maintainer. So someone who's protecting us, again, like the parent, he's also maintaining us. You know, the mother's providing clothes for the child, making sure they have all the things they need. Same with the Lord, he's providing for us. We think we're doing all this. We think, you know, but he's giving us this. Everything is given by the Lord, because at death we can't take it with us, not even this body. The body's even given to us, and he's maintaining us in this. He's giving us, he's allowed us to have this body, he's allowed us to have, you know, our homes and our everything. So he's our maintainer.
Yes, and the thing is, if I correct me, from the third one, I think you have no worries. It takes worry off, you know, you become free of your worries. Yes.
You're when you know that someone's your protector, it's like a child, they're not anxious. It takes away the anxiety, because you know, actually I'm not in control here, and it's up to the Lord. So it's
absolutely. And the maintainer aspect, I think, gives you gratitude, you know.
Yeah, totally, because you feel so grateful that he's giving you so much. I mean, if you really think about it, really think about everything you have, like, to be totally grateful for that. You know, it's so easy for us to always think what we don't have. Many people are always trying to acquire things. This is the nature of, you know, the ego and desire. I want. It's like explained that it's like putting butter on fire. It's like the desires are never going to, material desires are never going to disappear. They're just going to keep increasing. But once we can really understand and really be grateful, it's like, wow, all this has been provided for me by the Lord. He's given me so much, So yeah, you're totally right.
Number 5.
So then number 5, Atma Nikshepa, complete submission of oneself. So complete surrender. Atma Smarapana, full surrender without reservation. Again, a really big thing. It's a really high thing. Whether it may take many lifetimes, I think, for myself. But it's complete surrender. How to really do that in everything. Thinking, everything you think of is your surrender to the Lord. Everything, every action you do, every desire you do is for His total satisfaction. You're totally.
And that's what the Draupadi's, if you gave the explanation, you see the Draupadi's mindset is going through this chronological, she is depending on the outside world, but the one you just mentioned, the complete surrender, she lets go.
Totally let go, yeah. And whatever the outcome, I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied with that, because that's ultimately Krishna's will, is his desire. And that's, quite a high thing. And then the number 6 is Kadpanye, feeling meek, humble, insignificant, wretched, material, destitute. So it's this feeling of, it sounds quite desperate in a way, and we are, I think, when you really realize that Maya is so powerful. Maya is so clever. Really, she is so clever. So to be totally humble and meek and understand that the Lord, really, I'm nothing, like He's controlling everything. And so to come to the Lord, it's about attitude, how we have our attitude with each other even, not to be full of pratishta and pride and anger and, desires. But it's the desire to serve and the desire to please the Lord. And I think, again, people think that this means, when they think of humility, people sometimes, I think, in the modern material Western world, they think, it means that you're there to be a doormat or to be trampled on, and it's not that. We're not for material, not in a material way, but in a spiritual, higher way. It's a different. Again, it's slightly different conception if we're trying to do that which is favourable to the Lord. So giving honour to the devotee, to other devotees, and to accept and to be really humble. What does that really mean when we read that? To be humble, more humble than a blade of grass, and a great blade of grass is trodden on all the time, but yet it doesn't complain. It doesn't, doesn't argue back necessarily. So, and I think that's, again, when people are really desperate, again, like with Parvati, she was totally desperate. She was totally, vulnerable, had nothing else, nowhere else to go to. And even if we read the teachings of Queen Kunti, and Queen Kunti is, we read her story, it's tragic, but she's praying for more disturbance so that she can constantly remember the Lord,
Parvati, did you say? Sorry, I didn't.
Queen Kunti.
Okay. Yes, of course. That's another.
There's so many. As I was saying, there's so many, and this is the lovely thing again about all the Vedas and the amazing Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. There's so many amazing stories and examples for us to really learn from, and meditate on, and try and incorporate some of those things in our own, within our thinking.
Yeah, you have surrender of gopis, you have surrender of Kunti, and you have surrender of, obviously, Draupadi. You have even surrender of Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita.
Arjuna, totally surrendered. Totally surrendered.
So they're different. Yeah, again, maybe we should
different scenarios, different things, but
Different-
it's
different
amazing.
things. Yeah, dude, like, some other point, every single actually individual one, if you discuss the whole context and the scene within, and you find new. Can you hear me? Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I mean, when you were talking, I was just playing that scene of Draupadi in the court, and I'm just thinking what the person is feeling, and then, but we're not going to discuss it today. I think I'll definitely want to. Let's explore that scene, that whole episode, of Draupadi and her surrender. I think it's one of the most powerful, scenes of surrender. From a human point of view,
Yeah.
it's quite amazing, actually.
Yeah. No, totally.
Number 8?
No, there's only 6. There's only
Six.
six
Okay.
limbs of surrender. So,
Lovely.
and then, there's many lovely books. I mean, there's a lovely book called Shaganarati Surrender by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which really goes through all in as many verses. This is a really lovely book.
I'll put the link actually in the description box. And
Put them in description book, and also Shri Prapanand Jivanamrita. This is another really wonderful book. I don't know if you can see the book. There you go.
Yeah, and the six. Which page? If you later on, if you message me the page number, I'll copy and paste in the description box as well if somebody wants to read, in Sanskrit and English translation.
Yes, yeah, they're really,
that's
good books.
Really, I think we need to meditate on these, isn't it? It's just not listening about them. It's actually.
I think so. It's really, really listening and really trying to. Even if you think like in your own life, when certain things have happened, or when it almost feels like miracle things have happened, when you think, oh, you're really desperate, and even chanting the holy name, but having that protection, we say Krishna's name, he's non-different from his form, and his name are non-different. So when we're chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, we're associating with the Lord, and had to have faith in that also, and believe in that. So it's a very powerful mantra.
I really actually enjoyed today. Really, it was really, really good. And I was just thinking again that with this 6 aspects, we can bring in the Navada Bhakti. I think it fits in very nicely with it, isn't it? Because who are you surrendering to? You have to know. You have to know that first. Who you're surrendering to, and the Navada Bhakti will actually give you that. Will give you that, this is what you're surrendering to, so we can cover that later.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your time today. I know Saturday morning you must be busy, but
it's fine. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.